So I think that it's 3:30 p.m. in Indonesia. I welcome you from Poland. So good morning from Poland. It's 9:30 a.m. Good afternoon in Malaysia and all over the world. Also good evening. Hello everybody. I welcome you to the session devoted to sustainability. My name is Barbara Ocicka and I am professor of SGH Warsaw School of Economics located in Poland. I represent Department of Logistics at Collegium of Business Administration. My honor is to conduct this session, so I really thank you very much for this pleasure and honor, and I wish all of you a fruitful discussion, great presentations, and of course also good networking between us. I think we should start. We have 4 presentations and our agenda. I think that 20 minutes, it's time for each presenter. Then we will have 5 minutes for audience questions and presenters' answers. Let's do that. And the first presenter will be Dr. Ramakrishna Yanamandra, and the title of the presentation is an integrated framework of supply chain management to achieve circular economy. Doctor, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barbara, Professor Barbara, in fact. It's great to actually meet all of you and then under the chair of Dr. Barbara. Am I audible to all of you, please? Am I audible?
Not yet. The presentation is not, we don't see your presentation.
Yeah. No, is my voice audible, please?
Yes, you do.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much. Share screen. I think, yeah. There is a small change in the topic which I have sent actually. The topic is not on circular economy, but the topic is on integrated framework to achieve supply chain resilience. With the permission from the Professor Barbara, I will be in touch with the OSCM committee because I would like to present on the integrated framework to achieve supply chain resilience. With the permission from the chair, I would like to proceed for the presentation.
I think it's okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the objectives of my study is that given the opportunities in the pandemic situation, and also given the opportunities in the logistics and supply chain area, I'm very fortunate that Professor Barbara is also from the logistics area. So the objectives of my paper are, what is supply chain resilience? I would like to understand what is this supply chain resilience and why the companies need to be resilient. Okay, why the companies need to be resilient. Now, in the pandemic situation, the companies which are resilient will be the winners. I mean, they will be the most successful companies which will emerge out of the pandemic situation. And also to identify the research gaps and to identify the strategies to actually achieve the supply chain resilience and then mitigate the situations which actually make you to get into the situation where you have vulnerabilities and disruptions or disruptions. So to identify the capabilities required to achieve the supply chain resilience, not all the companies or the organizations can achieve the resilience on their own unless they actually create and develop or implement certain strategies. So this is the objective of one of the objectives of identifying the strategies. And to identify what are the capabilities required to achieve the supply chain resilience. Then finally, I developed a framework by relating the SC strategies and capabilities to achieve the supply chain resilience. So going back to the introduction, today's supply chain management, as all of us are aware of, is more complex, is a completely dynamic setup. So given this complexity, there is a lot of opportunity or there is a lot of chance for vulnerability too. This vulnerability can come from micro and macro levels of economy, and also there is an external and internal vulnerability to the supply chains. We have all seen, given the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic situation, most of the companies depend on the Chinese manufacturing companies for their manufacturing operations, as well as their second and third tier suppliers who are all situated in China. But due to the COVID situation, the sourcing from China has become a problem because of prolonged lockdowns and some of the disturbances. So business activity has some kind of risk, and these are actually in the interconnected world. This is more actually leads to a pandemic situation. Okay, there are reasons like health-related pandemic situations, and we're all also aware of that. Due to the lockdowns implemented by majority of the countries, the transportation from one country to the other country got affected, and because of that, there is a lot of supply chain disruptions. And disruptions are not something new to supply chain people, supply chain managers. They have been having disruptions due to many reasons in the previous also, maybe because of the SARS pandemic, or maybe because of any other pandemics like natural disasters, earthquakes, or pandemics like internal problems like workforce, weather conditions, and all that. So given these, given this background, so it's always important to identify what is this supply chain disruption, why it is caused, and what actually strategies you need to implement to minimize these disruptions. So that is where actually there is an opportunity for companies to achieve what is called as the supply chain resilience. Now, supply chain resilience, popularly known as SCR, leads to what is called as the successful encountering of the disruptions. Now, what is this supply chain resilience? Now, it's a situation wherein the companies build their capabilities, to quickly resume back to their normal operations from the abnormal conditions. Say, for example, from the present COVID situation, which is a pandemic situation, to the post-pandemic situation. Though we are still struggling with this virus and still it is continuing. So thanks, there is a scope, at least there is a light on the other side that the vaccine is coming soon and it is getting implemented all over the world and all that. So given the situation during the pandemic, which is almost for 10 to 12 months, which companies would have been stronger? Okay, that is the supply chain resilience. So companies which are actually resilient will be able to manage the supply chain operations very smoothly. So to define the resilience, I took the great author Christopher and Peck, the capability of supply chain to manage the outcomes of SC disruptions and quickly regain the original position. And sometimes you also get into what is called as new situations. You may look for new opportunities. So the company also can improve their positions. So the strategy is to minimize the supply chain resilience or achieve the opportunities to reach resilience is that supply chains needs to be flexible design. There needs to be supply chain collaboration, okay? And focus on supply chain agility. These all can improve the resilience of the supply chain management. Another important strategy which was found to be is redundancy. Now, redundancy is something which is being done again, repetition, okay? It is also found to improve supply chain resilience as quoted by Jutner and Macklin. And in order to be supply chain resilient, flexibility, redundancy, and visibility in the supply chain are one of the very important factors found to achieve the supply chain resilience. This will enable the companies to quickly come back to their normal positions, achieve the normality, and then maintain the continuity in their operations. So summary of the literature review, which was done to identify the gaps. Okay, there are 4 approaches in creating a resilient supply chain. One is engineering through design, collaboration, agility, and creation of a risk management culture in the organization. Then comes to robust supply chain strategies, something like postponement, okay, which the Dell is a great example for postponement actually. Product postponement, we call it as. So, I mean, the product postponement is something like you manufacture 70 to 60 to 70% of your product, which is a base product, but you add all those add-ons only at the end of the product life, I mean, the supply chain life cycle, wherein the customer will be asking the customer after you receive the order from the customer, the postponement of the product is actual product is manufactured, which is called as postponement of the product. Then another important strategy, which is the strategic stock. Okay, now most of the companies have faced a problem during the pandemic situation because they were not able to maintain the inventory based on the strategic stock situation. Another important thing is flexible supply base. Now, the geographical concentration of majority of the suppliers of all the companies in the world, most of them, if not everybody, are focused in China, Chinese companies. So now, if there is a time now for the companies to look for the suppliers from other countries also, which I would call it as flexible supply base, and flexible transportation systems, make and buy decisions, and also having something called as dynamic assortment. Now, categorization of risk is one of the important aspects. Most of the companies ignore the risk management plan. There should be a proper risk management plan, identification of risks, dividing the risks according to external, internal, climate-based risk, probably man-made risk and all that, and then the demand side risks. So when we can say that the company has achieved the resilience capabilities is basically when it actually achieves the 3 R's. One is called readiness to face the pandemic situation. Second one is the response, which is nothing but the flexibility and quickly recovering from the existing disruptive situation. Now, structural flexibility is something like dual sourcing. In fact, I would like to call it as multiple sourcing also, asset sharing and product postponement. Okay, flexibility, visibility, adaptability, collaboration, and sustainability were mentioned by some other authors. And then there should be a significant supply chain modeling of the existing disruptions. Okay, 8 categories of resilient oriented investments were also identified by authors like Melnick. Okay, and he was of the opinion that discovery is very important, information sharing is very important, supply chain design flexibility, configuration, buffer stock, operating flexibility, security, preparedness, and indirect investments. Okay, so moving on from the literature review, my research study is based on a systematic literature review, and then there is a need for understanding more about the concept of supply chain resilience. Okay, still majority of the companies are not still aware of what exactly you mean by the supply chain resilience, what exactly you mean by getting ready for the supply chain resilience. Okay, so here I would like to put it as the term resilience is still not adequately studied. So that is one of the research gaps, which is the background of this paper, my paper. Okay, uncertainty has been increasing in supply chain resilience, and it has become one of the very important topic these days. Therefore, the paper aims to fill this gap in the body of knowledge by studying supply chain strategies for supply chain resilience and recommends supply chain strategies and capabilities to achieve this. So this is one of the important elements of my study. Okay, the literature review was done using the 5 keywords. These are the keywords which are used to identify the literature review. One was supply chain resilience, strategies of supply chain resilience, what are the capabilities, and how digital technologies will enable the supply chain resilience, and in general to identify the basic concepts and evolution of supply chain management. Supply chain management itself was used as one of the keywords. Okay, so based on the research gaps identified and from the published literature, a model has been developed to minimize the supply chain resilience. Now, when coming to findings and conclusions, because the time is given maximum of 20 minutes, I would like to give the opportunity for the questions also. Strategies which have been identified by me to minimize the supply chain resilience and achieve supply chain resilience situation is that the companies need to allocate separate budgets for achieving the resilient situation and to minimize the disruptions which actually make you to disturb your existing supply chain operations. Information sharing, as all of us are aware of, digital technologies will enable this information sharing. Information sharing has increased in the last couple of years. Supply and demand information sharing, sharing of your manufacturing plant with the suppliers, identifying suppliers who are actually willing to collaborate with you. Okay, re-engineering of your all operations, especially the supply chain operations, collaborating with all the number of suppliers, 3-tier, 4-tier, or we call it as third-party logistics and fourth-party logistics and all that. Making the supply chain more agile, more flexible. Creation of supply chain risk management culture in the organization. Now, unfortunately, the literature focuses on many companies not ready for creating a culture of ready for accepting the supply chain risk. Most of the companies have the focus that, okay, let us see when it comes. Okay, now that is actually what happens because of the companies lacking focus on the supply chain, developing supply chain risk culture. Dual sourcing, asset sharing, and multi-carrier transportation options instead of depending on only one kind of carrier, and then the postponement. These are all found to be leading to the achieving of supply chain resilience capabilities like readiness, adaptability to the given situation, collaboration with different stakeholders of supply chain, members of the chain, quick response during the pandemic situations especially, and in all the other normal situations also. Flexibility is one important aspect. Achieving redundancy, able to keep alternative buffer stocks, alternative additional capabilities and capacities in case of unable to procure during the right time. Improving the visibility in the entire chain, improving the visibility among all the supply chain members. This is possible through information sharing and usage of digital technologies. And then the ability to require quickly from the pandemic situation or any disruptive situation in the supply chain, leading to achieve what is called as the supply chain resilience. So resilience and faster recovery is possible through this model, which are probably natural and man-made disruptions. So these are my references, which are part of the total paper. Thank you so much, Dr. Barbara. I am open for the questions.
Yes, thank you very much for an interesting presentation. Many issues that you have discussed, and I am wondering about the questions and the discussion. So I invite all of you to ask questions and make comments. You can use, of course, your microphones, cameras, and chat. So please, now I open the discussion regarding and around the topic supply chain resilience. Who would like?
Hello, Mr. Rama.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Okay. Your paper is interesting. I have one question, please.
Sure, please.
You said that one of approach to creating a resilient supply chain is supply chain collaboration. Would you please explain who do you mean collaborate? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, sir. Collaboration is of various levels. The collaboration with the suppliers, collaboration with the distributors, collaboration during the manufacturing processes among the internal departments. So we can call this collaboration. I did not put all that in my presentation. Actually, it is there in my full paper. Collaboration is generally from the what do you call upstream supply chain and downstream supply chain. Okay, and also the internal collaboration among all the departments. Generally, what happens, the manufacturing department in any manufacturing organization, manufacturing function, is one of the core functions of the organization. It needs to collaborate with the suppliers. It needs to collaborate at the same time with the distributors for finished goods, and then the availability of the products to the customers. So basically, it is the collaboration in the entire supply chain, right from the sourcing level to the distribution level, and it is at different levels of the organization.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments, please? So let me ask one question, because many researchers underline that after the pandemic, COVID-19, we will have the new normal business environment. And I would like to ask, what do you think, which capabilities and what supply chain resilience strategies will be the most important in the new normal world?
Okay. Thank you, Professor Barbara. The main strategy which I feel should be able to balance between supply and demand, able to collab, which actually leads to what is called as the collaboration. I would also like to put another important strategy is global distribution of suppliers in global sourcing, so that you are not actually, your supply chain is not getting disrupted just because of one country's suppliers or just because of one area's problem. This is what I feel.
Yes, I agree with you that the supply side of supply chain is really very important. And here we will for sure have such trends and diversification, regionalization of supplier base. Okay, and maybe I will ask one more question. What will be the next step in your research? Because I think that we should maybe fill the gap between the theory of supply chain resilience that is relatively good developed in the literature and research agenda, and between business practice. So what do you plan to do in your research work at the next step?
Thank you, Professor. The future scope of this research would be to actually investigate, conduct an empirical research, and then collect the data from geographical companies which are distributed across, most COVID impacted and, say, for example, reasonably COVID impacted and all that. Probably I can do a comparative study between companies which have their plans towards resilience and companies which do not have any plans towards resilience. That would be an opportunity for companies which did not plan for resilience, did not have any strategies for resilience. So I can do a comparative study on that.
I think it is very difficult to board supply chain resilience strategies because we need the perspective of end-to-end supply chain management, and it is really very hard and difficult to achieve visibility in the perspective from end to end, so from end-tier suppliers to end-tier customers. Okay, could you have a look on our chat, because there is also a comment on your presentation, and maybe you would like to add something.
1 minute. You mean you want me to go to the...
The comment is devoted to your presentation, so we have still time for this topic. So please have a look, and maybe you will add some remarks.
Okay. Okay, you want me to go to the chat section? Yeah, I think I'm not able to quite timely.
Okay, I understand. So maybe the author of the comment, she would like to ask the question or make a comment.
Yeah, there was a comment from Himanshu Shi, and he says, thanks, Dr. Ramakrishna. The topic is quite timely. Under the risk in supply side and demand side, on top of lockdowns, border closure, business closure, what extent those abilities like visibility, flexibility, adaptability will be effective in quick recovery? Sure. I would like to address this question. Thank you so much. Yes, actually the objective of this paper is from that background only. Due to prolonged lockdowns and the border closure, not all the countries have closed the borders in the beginning. Okay, if you look at carefully, if you analyze the borders very carefully, for example, let us assume that China is the most, the initially impacted country was China. China. Okay. Later on, it spread to the other countries and all that. Then only the borders were closed in the other countries. So the multiple sourcing, multiple sourcing would have really solved this impact for many countries, for many companies also. So companies which are not solely dependent on one geographical region. I repeat, companies which are not solely dependent on one geographical region for their sourcing, I think they are the ones who are able to achieve this resilience very quickly, and then they are able to achieve what is this capabilities of resilience like visibility, flexibility, and adaptability.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ramakrishna, for the presentation. There is still one question.
Yeah.
Do you think that
this pandemic situation gives so many pressure on resilience? I don't call it as a pressure situation. Actually, see, if you look, if you analyze the supply chain management in any organization, all these activities of supply chain are routine. Routine in the sense they are there on everyday management of their operations. The only thing is the pressure is because of two broad areas. One is the sourcing, one is the distribution. Okay, sourcing is the pressure area and distribution is the pressure area. Now you have the finished goods with you. You are not able to distribute your finished goods from your manufacturing organization, and you have a lot of demand, but at the same time, you are not able to procure the items. So there is a pressure on procurement and distribution, but then the manufacturing is still continuing in that particular organization. Yes, the pandemic situation has definitely given the pressure on achieving supply chain resilience. Companies which were postponing their plans, to achieve resilience were forced to achieve resilience as quickly as possible now. So that is the biggest pressure now.
Yes, and I would like to add that I think that lessons learned from the COVID pandemic are very important, because probably we will have some other mega trends and crises in the turbulent environment. So the resilience is really still very important research topic.
You are very right, Dr. Barbara.
Thank you very much. And of course, we are waiting for your next results and papers, of course.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks all of you.